Have you been waiting for a mobile version of Luminar that you can use on your iPad? Well, wait no longer. It's here. If you've tried it already, is it what you expected? Or do you still have some lingering questions? I'm Darlene with Digital Photo Mentor. In this video, you'll hear my thoughts on the brand new Luminar for iPad, and you'll get all of your questions answered. Make sure you watch all the way to the end because I'll have a secret bonus tip for you. So if you're ready, let's dig into Luminar for iPad and see what all the hype is about. Before we take a look at the actual app interface, you need to know a few things about it, including how to get it. If you're on the Skylum website, you'll notice that they now have a page for Luminar for iPad. You'll also notice that it's not called Luminar Neo. If you'd like to try it out for free before you decide whether or not you want to buy it, we'll talk about pricing in a moment. Just click Try Now here. Follow the directions and install it on your iPad to give it a go. As I mentioned, this is a brand new app. This is not Luminar Neo Mobile. This is Luminar for iPad. They are completely different. This is a new app. To run the app, you need to have an iPad with at least iOS 17 or higher installed. As I mentioned a moment ago, this is a paid app and you do need to get a subscription to use it. You can choose to subscribe monthly, but you'll pay a little bit more that way, or you can pay for 6 months or a year at a time. If you get the annual subscription, it's only $29.99 in US dollars. I've been following discussions about this online in Facebook groups and YouTube comments, and what I'm seeing is that people are pushing back against paying for this app. The popular consensus seems to be that if you already have Luminar Neo, why do you have to pay again to get this app? If you have an Adobe subscription, you get Lightroom and Photoshop Mobile for free. The short answer here is that because this is a brand new app and not something that Skylum has originally developed, they need to pay to create this thing. So expecting to get it for free is a little bit unrealistic in my opinion. And if you look at the comparison and pricing, the Adobe Photographers package is $10 a month. So over 2 years, you'll be paying $240. Luminar Neo is often on sale and recently was $119 for 2 years. Add in 2 years for the app, and you're still only at $180, which is 25% less than the Adobe subscription. So think about the actual numbers rather than is it included or isn't it included, because you're actually paying more for the Adobe version. In addition to that, for people who are only using mobile to do their photos and editing, can get Luminar for iPad without having to buy a license for Luminar Neo. So that's why they are separate. And remember, there is a 7-day free trial. So download it, give it a go, and then at the end of the 7 days, you can choose whether you want to pay the extra or not. The choice is yours. Let's move on to a few FAQs with some questions that I've seen asked online as well. The first is, what file formats will it handle? It will take and edit all of the typical image formats, including a RAW file. There's been lots of discussion about this and some misinformation. Yes, you can put your RAW files into Luminar for iPad. The only thing is it does not have camera profiles currently. I'll show you that when we take a look at the interface of the app. Currently, there are 12 tools in Luminar for iPad. If you're used to using Luminar Neo on your computer, there are a few things missing. I'll go through that list in a moment. A benefit of having separate licenses for Luminar Neo and Luminar for iPad is that you don't have to own Luminar Neo to use it on your iPad. As I mentioned already, the licenses are separate. You purchase Luminar iPad through the App Store. Now, let's hop over to the actual app and see what it looks like. I've already got Luminar for iPad installed, but to find it, just go to the App Store and search for Luminar. This is the one you want with the black icon and the yellow star. Once you find it, just download it and install it on your iPad. Once you've done that, you'll see it on your desktop with the same icon. When you open it, it pulls from your Mac Photos app. So the images that are already in Photos on your iPad will automatically show up. I've put a few into my favorites. These have already been edited using Luminar for iPad. Remember I mentioned that it will handle raw files? You can see that right here. These images here are raw. To open one into the app, just click the image and you'll see the tools. I'm just going to close this one so I can show you the 12 tools that are included. Down the side here, you can see there are Develop, Enhance AI, Structure AI, Relight AI, Landscape, Details, Curves, and Monochrome. You can also see up the top here, there's a Crop tool, which works very similarly to Luminar Neo. You can do Flip or Crop by common aspect ratios, including for Facebook post or cover. Let's do a Facebook cover. There's also an Erase tool that you can use to get rid of anything that you don't want visible. For example, something on the ground. I've tried it out on a couple of things and it works really well. If you're wondering where the other two tools are, they're over here on the left on this little half circle. If you click on this little icon that looks like a cloud, it'll bring up Sky Replacement. Just like Luminar Neo, you can replace the sky really quickly and easily. It comes with a number of selections of different skies, and if you go all the way to the bottom, you can see where you can add your own. Just click here. You can also flip the sky left to right, and there are some other controls for masking, as well as adjusting the brightness and darkness, the color temperature, and making the sky out of focus. If you decide not to use this tool, just unselect the sky, and it will go back to the original. The other tool over on the left side is a film canister, which has various different film or filtered looks. If you use Luminar Neo on your computer, this is similar to the Mood tool. By selecting one of the looks, you'll see it applied. You can use the dial to intensify it or decrease its effect. There are several that come with Luminar for iPad, and you can just quickly apply them to see which one works best on your image. I like this one for this image to give it an old world feel. To get back to the other tools, just click this icon here. When you open each of the tools, they look a little different than what you might expect. They've created a very different interface for iPad compared to the desktop version. You can adjust the color here, double tap to reset, the tint here, brightness, shadows, highlights, and so on. So all of the familiar sliders in the Develop module in regular Luminar Neo are here as well. W is for whites, B is for blacks, this is contrast, this one is a vignette on the edge. You can also make a light vignette or a dark vignette. And this interesting little tool here adjusts the color. You'll notice when you move it around, it's like a joystick, and you'll see the settings changing. This is adjusting the vibrance and the saturation. So as I move my finger, it's changing both of those settings. Kind of like a 2-for-1 slider. I'm going to increase the vibrance while decreasing the saturation on this one. When you're happy with the tool settings, you can press this button to toggle it off and on, or just tap the name to close that tool. Move on to the next one. Enhance AI is pretty straightforward. You just have a dial. So increase it or decrease it to your liking. Once again, toggle the tool off and on, or if you want to see a full before and after the image, just press and hold on the image with your finger and then release. Each of the tools works very similarly. Structure AI, you can increase or decrease the structure. Relight allows you to adjust the brightness and darkness of the foreground and background elements and the range where it applies. by rotating this little circle here. That's a little too much. Again, toggle it on and off using the switch here. That's doing a good thing. The landscape tool has 3 options. Golden hour to increase the amount of yellow or golden glow. Foliage enhancer, as expected, applies to the greens, so grass and trees. And this one here is atmosphere or fog. Details has 4 options. It's a little bit tricky to figure out at first, but if you choose the M, for example, that's medium details. Take it one direction, you are increasing, the other direction, it's decreasing. Double tap to reset. I like to increase the medium details a little bit, as well as large details, and decrease the small details, as well as increase the sharpening, which is this slider here. As with any iPad app, you can just use your fingers to pinch to zoom in or out. Double tap fits it back to the screen. Curves has been separated out from the Develop tool, and it works just like any other curve in any other program. You can add contrast by making a steeper S-curve or decrease it by going the opposite direction. You can also create some neat color effects by using the color curves, like blue, for example, and red. If I choose not to use curves, I just have to toggle it off and close it up. The last one is monochrome. It allows you to shift the image to black and white using a particular filter. For example, yellow or green or blue. You can see how it affects the image. I'm going to leave this one in color. When you're done with your image, just tap Share, save it back to Photos, and you'll see the check marks show up when it is completed. Right there. You can also choose to share using other methods, such as AirDrop, email, and so on, similar to any other app on your iPad. To return to the Photos list, just click the back arrow. You'll see this message come up. Don't worry, you've already saved the changes, so just click Discard. To check that the edits have been applied, let's just go over to the Photos app. Here it is here. When it's open, you can see here's the original raw file, and there's the edited version that I sent over from Luminar for iPad. You can see some of the edits I've already done using the iPad app. Here's an original of the Grand Canyon, also a raw image, and there's my edit. Here are a few more that I've already edited using Luminar for iPad. There's a before and after. Before and after. You can see that I did a sky replacement and blurred the sky to match the original image, so it's quite believable. Another before and after, and a blue hour image of Amsterdam that I got really creative with using the sky replacement. Once again, these are all things that were possible using the Luminar for iPad app. I'm quite happy with this one. You'll notice that the stars are even reflecting in the water of the canal. Considering this has been edited on iPad, I think it's quite impressive. Okay, now that we've had a look inside Luminar for iPad, there's a few things you need to be aware of. We've already talked about support for raw files, and as you saw in the demonstration, I was able to open and process them. However, there is no option for camera profile usage. Likewise, there's some other tools and options that are not currently available. They may be added at a future date, but as of now, nothing has been announced. The first 2 things you'll notice are missing are layers and masking. So you can't do things like local adjustments with masking or add a texture or bokeh overlay to your images. I would love to see Luminar for iPad have both of those things, so hopefully they'll get incorporated into a future update. Skylum hasn't announced a roadmap for the app yet, so we'll have to see where it goes. Another big topic of discussion online is that there is no ability to sync Luminar for iPad with Luminar for desktop. So you can't send the image and the edits from Luminar for iPad over to Luminar Neo. And finally, this app is only available for iPad, so that means there's no Android version or iPhone version currently. We can only speculate about what might come. But let me get to the bonus tip that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Remember how I said Luminar for iPad doesn't sync with Luminar Neo? Well, I have a workaround for that. Let's take a look. Here I am back in Luminar for iPad. Even though there isn't a sync option to send these images that I've just edited over to Luminar Neo, we can sort of circumvent that problem using the Luminar Share app. You can see it here on the desktop. Make sure that you have this app installed. Luminar Share is part of the regular Luminar Neo app. So when you installed it on your computer, you've got this option already. You just need to install it on your iPad and then you'll be good to go. Once you've done that, these are the steps you need to follow. First, open Luminar Neo on your computer. Go up to Share in the upper corner and choose Connect. It will display a QR code. Then open the Luminar Share app on your iPad, click the button that says Scan QR code, and point the iPad at your computer to scan the code. That will pair them together, ready for sending images. Now, back in the Luminar Share app, you can see the option to send images. Click there, find your favorites, select all the ones you want to send. In this case, I'm going to do all 7, and then just click Add. And finally, Send. Now these images that I edited using Luminar for iPad are being sent to Luminar Neo on my laptop. Let's go look back in Luminar Neo to see if they've been received. And sure enough, there they are. To find them, just look under the Luminar Share folder. So while it's not a perfect workflow, it is a good workaround. If you'd like to learn more about how to use Luminar Neo on your computer, check out my complete course. I cover each of the tools step by step, and you get my raw files so that you're able to follow along with each of the lessons. I'll put a link to the course in the description area below for you. If you'd like to watch another video here on YouTube, click one on the screen now.